going to start here. Okay, hi there, everybody. Welcome to Sage Talk. I love this. I'm James Wanless, Dr. James Wanless, and over here is
Dr. Will Coleman.
Dr. Will Coleman, and Will lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and I live in Los Angeles. And we go back, don't we, Will?
We go back to 1985.
Wow. Right.
Yes.
It's funny. I mean, I think that qualifies us as a sage, doesn't it?
Most definitely. We have lived long enough now to be called sages by virtue of the things we've done and what we continue to do. Yes.
Well, yeah. So a sage. I mean, what does a sage mean to you, actually, other than just having lived a long life, let's say, or something like
Well,
that?
I think a sage is a person who has also accumulated some wisdom from their
Mm.
long living, some
Right.
things that they have observed, that have experienced, and they have something to say that can be of value as they themselves are reflective on their own lives and this connection socially, this connection with other people, this connection with contemporary social, economic, political realities.
Oh, so what I like about, and this is the purpose of our sage talk is to explain the kinds of different wisdoms that we've experienced through life, because most of us are on the sage path. We're on the wisdom trail, don't you think?
If we have some intention behind that, it's
Right.
the point you made earlier. It's not only how many years we've lived, it also is moving into a more reflective phase in your life about how you have lived and what type of wisdom you can pass on to the next generation. So it's not like self-serving.
So
it's no longer egocentric.
right. So to be a sage, you have to be very reflective. I mean, you're a thinker, you're an observer of humanity, of human nature, of life, right?
Yes.
But then a sage has to be called a sage. We have to be relevant to the world, and I'm pretty sure because we're both very active in our lives that we are relevant.
Well, we certainly seek to in our own particular ways. I mean, we both have backgrounds in fields that require reflection. Myself in theology, philosophy, biblical studies, yourself in political science, and in the wonderful system of Voyager Tarot that you developed many years ago, of which I was one of your first students, if not the first student.
Yeah, you were my first student.
I was the very first. Wow. In 1985.
Right.
That first came out with that Tarot intuitive system.
Right. And so we do go back, and I think, but everybody, would you agree with this, Will? I mean, everybody through life experience has some sagacity or wisdom.
Yes.
But to call yourself a sage is I think it's based on your intention, right?
Your intention and your willingness to call the wisdom forward. Back to the point I made earlier, I really believe this. It's not just accumulation of years. There is a point where one has to also decide that he or she now has in a way been initiated into this place of wisdom and experience and counsel, and two, that he or she is willing to share it. That the virtues that he or she has acquired are ones that are no longer being kept for him or herself, but really being given as a benefit to the world, and as I said earlier, to the next generation in particular, so that they don't have to rebuild, but they can continue to enhance the great work such as it is.
Yeah, and I think, so to be a sage, really, to be able to share some wisdom, I mean, that intention, you have to be on kind of a path. I mean, some kind of a wisdom, discipline or study or something like that. It's not just, well, I've lived my life and I know a few things.
It's been on a path, and then it's recognizing, hey, that you have been on a path. Sometimes you don't recognize when you're younger. That's just true. You got to acquire the experience.
Right.
But once you begin to acquire it and accumulate it, and go through trial, success, trial, error, etc., and you have cultivated certain skills and knowledge that, in a way, streamline your efforts, then you have something to pass on that's worthwhile, I believe, and that will enhance the future generation coming after you. key too. Is that becoming a sage, as I said earlier, also means you now think about posterity.
Yeah.
Not just for yourself, not just for
Right.
your own work, and not
Right.
just about what you've done, but what you do to participate in leaving the world a better place than you found it.
Well, let me ask you that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. But let's say that we're sages, but the new generation in the world today is different than 1985. I mean,
Yeah.
why do you think that we actually have something to say? I mean, really, do we have any wisdom for the young people, for the millennials, for example?
Well, that's always in my way of thinking, that's always part of the give and take. We don't have anything to say if we just want to bring forth fiat that we think they should automatically accept.
Right.
In the alchemy of the give and take, then they will receive what is useful for them in their own context. And you're not simply communicating words, you're communicating energy as well. I just received a phone call from my grandson who was in a particular situation. He called me, he said he just wanted to hear my voice. He just wanted to be present.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying. Now, we're not exchanging a whole lot of work per se. We have in the past.
Right.
But I have also instructed him when he's in a certain type of dynamic and he needs assistance, you just give me a call. And that's what he did. We just got the phone.
And we're willing to share. And that's so great you said that, because I just did a consultation with the Voyager cards with two women who are 28.
Yes.
I mean, this is classic young millennial people coming to me, an old white guy at OWG, who has something to say.
I had a young woman, it must have been Sunday before last, who was on a panel, and she was speaking of the millennial generation of which she's a part, and she said, well, yes, there are things we have decided that we can do for ourselves, but it would be wonderful to be tutored by the generation ahead of us. Now, that was so profound and so awe-inspiring for me that she articulated that way. Yes, we do know what we can do for ourselves, but it would be wonderful if we could be tutored, if we could have mentors.
Right.
Which speaks to a void.
Right.
That's not on their part.
Right.
But sometimes a hesitancy on our part to step up.
Yeah. And I think sometimes older folk, I don't know, I don't particularly like that word old, but a lot of times, mature, they're saging and not aging. But I think some people do actually age, and when they try and leave some advice for younger people, it's like, well, in my day, this is the way we did it, and rah, 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 rah. And I'm not, I'm sure that was true for you, but, I don't think a lot of times people who know a lot, because sages are beyond just knowing stuff, right?
Well, yes, wisdom and being a sage is not retrograde, it is retrospective.
I like it. That's a great one.
Retrospective. It's not retrograde, it's retrospective.
Right.
To bring forward insight that then can carry on into the future.
Well, I love that. I love not retrograde, retrospective.
That's very different. But you move forward.
And it's so true when you look at the physics, the nature of life. It's all a spiral. There are no straight lines. So everything circles back. So to go ahead, you have to go back to go ahead. But not back to an old world that simply does not exist anymore,
That's right, not in that form.
Right.
Yes, there are patterns that are repetitive.
Right.
Those patterns, as you indicated, our patterns are moving forward, just as this planet moves forward, as the solar system is moving forward, as the galaxy is moving forward.
Right.
Where it was 5 billion years ago.
Right.
By any spectrum of imagination.
Right, exactly. But so, I mean, that's so interesting, because people have a tendency to sometimes just get stuck in the past. So what we're, as a true sage, I think what we're bringing forward is universal truths, in a way.
Universal consciousness, which we should have acquired, and which we should be willing, again, to communicate. That as we grow, and use the word, as we grow older, as we mature, we don't become despondent about that. We don't become regretful, wish we could go back, but rather we become situated in the accumulated wisdom and in the new life and vitality that comes through, I think ironically, but also in a very profound way, through being in contact with the next generation.
Well, that's, see, that,
life
that
you bring wisdom to them.
That's key, because sometimes when I was younger, I would get, hear a lecture from somebody who's an authority and whatever, and I thought, God, this is so boring. This is so boring. This guy knows it all, but is an authority and is out of touch with my life. So how do you, Will, stay kind of relevant and in touch with the new world?
One indication, and I'm fortunate to have grandchildren. When you have children and grandchildren,
right,
and you want to be relevant, they're going to help you to be relevant. The next thing would be, of course, as a professor, I work with students at different age groups.
Right,
so that helps a lot too. And so it's the live, real-time interaction that gives you the immediate test and gauge as to whether or not what you're saying is relevant in this context. And it doesn't have to be absolute truth at all. It needs to be a true, authentic communication that they can mull over, that they can put to the test, and that they can modify if they need to in their present context.
Right, exactly. And I think, but it takes a certain, I think one of my sagenesses, I'm sure that's not a word, is, it is now, is growing young.
Yeah,
in other words,
like
getting old. I mean, instead of getting old, we're saging ourselves. We're not aging, but part of saging is staying relevant to contemporary time, which is grow young.
Yeah.
Grow young. And boy, that is one of my great mantras is, how do I stay young, grow young today?
And how do we also, the image comes to mind, how do we consciously rebirth ourselves each day? I have an exercise I give my students that begins in the nighttime before you go to bed to do certain rituals or meditations that are about setting intention, not obsessively, but setting an intention through the night to rejuvenate the spirit, the mind, the emotion, and the body. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, when I wake up in the morning, take the fruits from the evening's meditation to the night meditation as a way of setting down your conscious daytime activities.
Well, I think that, and I think that's some of your wisdom and some of my wisdom is this growing young, but because we intentionally want to rebirth, renew, rekindle, rejuvenate, our lives. But like you have a special kind of meditation or ritual.
Oh, yeah.
For that.
That ritual, a synopsis of it is that before going to bed, that you take time to go into your own space, to, as it were, review, not in a sense of not, but to review the activities of the day-to-day. Enjoy doing the things you meant to do better.
Right.
That you speak to your body in particular about the things that it is communicating. You speak to it and listen to it. That you consciously let go of the things of that particular day as you now prepare to enter into dream time, sleep time, to also consciously meditate on how you are going to renew yourself from the inside out.
Yeah.
And that may include taking a shower, etc. And then when you go to bed.
Intention. Right.
Go to bed.
I think
last call. It's that powerful intention. Called rejuvenation.
I love that. And before going to bed, so instead of having your phone on, your TV, and be carried away with all that, it's let it go and go inside, inward, with intention of what am I about, why am I here, and how can I rebirth myself, basically. There. Wow, I think that's that's really what I do actually. Because I think we have different ways of doing it. It all works. I like my fountain of youth that kind of keeps me young and alive and looking forward to tomorrow is breathing. I'm a breather. I love.
Me too.
Breathing is prana, right? In the Hindu philosophy and spirituality, breathing in is God. I mean, it's the life force bringing in, and we are such shallow breathers.
Yeah.
I mean, in Hawaii they call us howlies. Howlie means basically without breath.
Yes.
Without breath, because we're so anxious. And we're not like.
Well, we allow ourselves to be infused with anxiety. You see the corresponding notion in Hebrew is the ruach. Breath of spirit, breath of the power of possibility, the breath of the element is called in Genesis. And so I like to do that as well in the context of this nightly meditation. And then the other thing is I actually have on one of my walls an anatomical map or chart. And so I'll do some internal body scanning to listen. I look at the map to look different parts of the body, and then within myself I will do an assessment.
Right.
Yeah,
a scan assessment.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's so.
I speak to it.
I didn't know you did that because I do a very similar thing from a Buddhist perspective.
That's universal.
Exactly. It's called Vipassana, which is a mindfulness meditation of just going in and scanning the body, feeling all without judgment, just observing, and going from the crown chakra up here all the way down to the body, the toes, and coming back up. But God, I think just doing that.
And in the midst of that, like the prana, and Taoism, the microcosmic orbit, circulating the energy. So that, if the energy becomes stagnated in the body, then you, with your consciousness, circulate it, release it, let it go. It's like breathing. Again, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. And you do so, you're inhaling spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. You're inhaling all of the bodies, and you're so to exhale and just circulate the energy. The body follows mind.
Well, let me ask you this, because you were referring to, was it a Kabbalah or a Hebrew technique? What did you call that?
The Kabbalah. And in Genesis, there's a model, people don't realize it, but there's a model in Genesis chapter 1 for multidimensional recreation of oneself.
Really? This is the Christian Bible in Genesis?
No, it's only the Christian Bible. It's in the Christian Bible, but it goes all the way back to the original Hebrew Torah.
The Torah. Right.
That's right.
The Hebrew Bible, basically. Wow.
Yes.
Well, that's, God, you know so much about that. What?
I took years learning it. I went to seminary, I had Greek, I had Hebrew, Latin, all those languages connected with the original text. And what's in the English translations does not communicate what's in the original text the same way. Obviously, it doesn't. But people don't realize that.
But what is
meditative techniques.
Why here you are, African American in Decatur or near the original Atlanta, I believe, in Georgia, and you're getting into all the Hebrew philosophy and wisdom and all that. What was the why? I mean, what drove you?
Because I was always precocious. I mean, as a child in Memphis, Tennessee, where I grew up, I would be drawn to read certain types of material. I read the Iliad and the Odyssey when I was 10 years old.
So you're a freak.
I read Socrates when I was 14. So I don't know why I just did, because this inward spirit.
Wow.
Read that.
And then you did it though. I mean, you didn't. Yeah. You weren't blocked from your parents, or this is
what. That's the key. I never questioned it. When I was given the impulse to do it, I did it.
Well, that's
another thing we both talk about. When you have the impulse to do something that's really powerful and profound, and is not going to infringe upon anyone else, do it.
Do it. The impulse, because the impulse is the life force itself, right?
It's your life force in particular.
Exactly, because it's coming through you, and most people block that, or they don't believe it, or they don't even feel it, because there's so much thinking mentally about whatever.
And the negative programming that so many of us have received. I mean, certainly as an African American, I could be real small in the way that I would approach reality, given the social forces that I just chose. No, I'm not moving forward. I'm moving forward. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to test this out. I'm going to explore this. Doesn't mean you don't meet challenges, but you don't stop because of it. Well,
I think that's one of the great secrets that we have, and that we like to share with everybody, is believe in that impulse and do it.
Believe in the inner spirit, to use a particular term here, that has brought you here into this incarnation.
Yeah.
And trust your intuition on that. Trust intuition and then verify it. It's not either or. I've always had an intuition about certain things first. And then the modality to which to accomplish that intuition will come. But if you block it, you stagnate it.
You're not authentic. You're not authentic because you're not being you, following that true inner voice of your intuition. Intuition's a great word. It means education from within. Intuition, knowing from within, not out there, which most people believe in.
No. And education really is educata. It means to bring it to lead out. So that which is within now is being brought out.
Right, right.
That which is innate is being manifested.
Well, that's what drives me crazy about our educational system. As good as it is, it's incredibly limited and confining and oppressive.
It becomes extraordinarily limited and confining if you make it a end unto itself.
Okay.
If you make it part of a process.
Right.
And if you're willing also to be not only educated, but to be an autodidact. One who's willing to also to teach himself or herself.
Auto, meaning self.
It can be a good foundation.
Right. And I think
if you stop there with the grade,
right,
you won't make your grade.
I think true sages are people who are self-taught. I mean, we follow our own curiosity. We have, there's IQ and there's EQ, which is emotional intelligence, and now there is CQ, which is the rage in psychology, which is curiosity intelligence. Yeah. And if you're going to be really smart even or successful in life, you better follow that quest that you are on based on the questions that you have and follow the impulse, because that'll take you to the promised land.
Absolutely, and the promised land is within.
It's within. But the school system, it tells us to learn this date and learn that everything external to the self.
Well, I see that can be useful for gathering certain type of data, but that is not just in terms of reformulated alchemically. Right. So that it becomes relevant, A, for your own personal growth and enhancement, and B, for a greater contribution to humanity.
Right. But I mean,
the sagacious is expressing a mode of inner knowledge, and knowledge that is not only intellectual, but it's, as you indicated, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's emotional, and it's physical. It has all those dimensions, and it does it simultaneously. And so now you are an incarnation of those attributes. Right.
Well, that's interesting you should say that, because my mystical practice to be a sage is the Voyager Tarot, which is an ancient system, kind of really based on the Kabbalah originally.
Absolutely.
I think,
it led me to the Kabbalah.
But in the classic tarot cards, it's very medieval. You have kings and queens and pages and princes and people like that, the royal family. With Voyager, I said, enough of that stuff. That's old world. I mean, really, that's not 21st century. So instead of...
particular time period.
Exactly. Perfect for them, but we've moved on. So what I have with Voyager are 4 sage cards. They're actually called sages. Yes, and they go back to what you're talking about, this holistic paradigm. So I have a sage, which are the highest cards in the deck. I mean, because sages are the wise ones, have been around the block a few times, know stuff, and they can share their wisdom with other people. They're very relevant and inspiring and all the rest. But there's a sage of the spirit, in a sense. In other words, like you're a theologist. I mean, you work, here, let me just show you this card. But this is, in Voyager, it's the Sage of Wands. Now, Wands is one of the 4 suits, but this is the suit of the light, of the fire, of the spirit.
Yes, you may not recall, but maybe you do. When I got admitted into graduate school, went from Atlanta to Berkeley, you sent me a huge print of that card.
Oh, that card, really?
That very one is my inspiration. And so I have it on my wall right now, and I had it when I was in Berkeley. I've had it since 1988.
But this is okay, so...
You sent me you sent me
that's amazing.
Huge...
Really?
It said fall, it was kind of like the Joseph Campbell expression, follow your bliss.
Right, exactly, but that doesn't mean you can remember everything. But
I remember because I feel that, and it's interesting that you picked it up, because that was definitely in sync with where I was at the time as I was preparing to pursue.
Right, but there are some sages, for example, who are especially gifted, let's say, in the business world, or some about relationships and stuff like that. But the Sage of Wands that you are truly are, and professionally you've been for a long, long time, is more coming from that higher self or the deeper, from the life force, the mystery.
It's higher and deeper. And one of the things I really liked about the Voyager's field with the Sage class, because I was always drawn to them as much as the 22 archetypal cards, is they give a place for a paradigm, a way of thinking that, if you will, blesses growing young, growing old, growing young.
Mm-hmm.
And as I recall then, and as you have now stated, they incarnate the sage of, I'm looking at learning now, sage of lawn, sage of cups, sage of crystal, sage of worlds.
Right.
They incarnate the elements that are represented by each of those attributes, and they embody it. So it's not either or.
Right.
It's not that the sage of worlds is only that. The sage of worlds also has the energy of the other sages.
So I think you and I would...
The manifest way is a bit different. The punctuation is different.
Right. Well, I think we would both agree that a true sage, in a way, is whole. Whole meaning spiritual and mental and emotional and physical.
That's right. And that he or she has really mastered one of the attributes, maybe more expressively than the others, but all four are there. They're all the spirit, mind, emotion, body are all there.
Right.
He or she now is at a position where they can choose to incarnate the expression of one or the other.
Right. But so the form that you've chosen to be a sage is through your, what kind of studies would you say?
Well, see, that's a good one. I'm glad you said that, because the present state of being a sage in this quote-unquote spiritual realm goes all the way back to that 5-year-old curiosity about writing the alphabets a certain way, one way or another. I never forget, I began writing my alphabet from right to left. In elementary school, it started left to right, and I wasn't being rebellious. I was remembering.
Wow.
I was remembering how to write Hebrew then.
So you're a firm believer, as I am, that we are, we have past lives, right?
Absolutely. And we have past lives not only full blown in another time and place, but ultimately we have past lives that come to us through our own DNA, our own living, breathing ancestors.
Absolutely.
But I have ancestors who are interested in these topics that I suffered when they have studied. So when I got my Ph.D., so did my grandmother, so did my grandfather, so did my great-grandparents who were not allowed to read. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not either or, it's both and.
Right.
That we embrace all of that, and which is another aspect of being a sage. You are now at a point where you can embrace your whole life. You don't have to say, well, no, you embrace your whole life. Well, you give it to me.
But you were given license. You were allowed to follow your curiosity. It wasn't like, oh, we'll stop that. Don't write to left or whatever. I mean, you got a free pass, which a lot of people don't get. And I think,
yes, I used to have parents who even if they didn't understand, they did not discourage the curiosity.
Right. So I think to be a true sage, I mean, a lot of it comes through in the magical child years.
Yes.
When we're formless and really young, because we don't have a lot of blocks yet, right? But I mean, so I'm just wondering, because, wow.
In a peculiar way, we are sagacious then in our curiosity. And that's why we really need the guidance and encouragement, rather than the kind of structures that seek to confine.
Right.
Guide, yes, but confine, no.
Yeah, but if everybody was allowed to just follow that whim or that crazy idea as a kid, wow.
Yes, I mean, and at the same time, there comes a point where one has to allow oneself. One has to decide. This is called the rite of passage of becoming an adult. The fact is that now you will begin to decide consciously and unconsciously, hopefully more consciously, what choices you will make, what you will pursue. I remember saying on one occasion, as I first arrived to Atlanta, that I wanted to travel because I want to be able to say as I grow older, I did instead of I wish I had. So I positioned my mind in a way that made me more receptive to opportunities that co-presented themselves. I mean that intended. Right. Co-presented themselves.
Right.
I was going towards them at the same time they were coming to me.
Yeah, I just think that it's so important to have that open mind state to, I mean, even if you're, even at whatever age, if you have any curiosity about anything, treat it as an adventure and check it out.
Well, that's why working yourself for a man can make it at any age. You never have to say, well, it's too late, because you're giving yourself every opportunity every day to rebirth.
Yeah, and I think my path of rebirthing and my sagacious path has been more on the actual physical travel plane.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up, my earliest memories go back when I lived in Rio on the beach in Brazil. I mean,
Yes.
oh my gosh, and I remember Carnival. I remember all of this as a kid, and I'm going like, I'm not a normal kid here because I've already had this wild experience.
Yeah, you set the template for yourself then. Or let's say you set the template to cooperate with that environmental introduction. This is another key point.
Right.
Yeah, because I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, back when we were colored in segregated communities.
Wow.
But my mind was not. It's amazing. My mind was not restricted. I credit my parents.
Right.
My curiosity was not restricted in that socio-political environment.
Right.
And in fact, in a peculiar way, I became more inquisitive.
Yeah.
And that inquisitiveness gave me a drive.
Right. Well, I think that is a real mark of a sage, is still having curiosity until you move on to the next plane. Yes. I just read an interesting study about two different, I mean, it's kind of a generalization, but it's interesting. Two different kinds of people. There are exploiters and there are explorers. An explorer is a person who has that curiosity, that CQ that you and I have, the hallmark of a sage. Exploiters are people who take the known, what they got, and they work it.
Even at the expense of others.
Well, it's called exploitation.
Exactly.
But I think that's what we're kind of taught, is learn this and then work it. To be successful, to be practical, to be down to earth. But that's really not where it's at. I mean,
and also that doesn't, from my point of view, again, take into account that everything has karma. Yes, you can work it, but it's working you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to be attentive to what is it that you want to reap in return for what you're sowing.
Right.
And don't be foolish about that. If you're willing to receive the fruits of your labor, whatever they are, so be it. But if you want to have correctives, then you got to do things that are proactive and corrective in the sowing phase of it.
In the sowing, in the process, in the doing. Yes, exactly.
That's again where the intention comes. And there's not only personal lessons that you have to learn, but there are also social, political, and historical lessons that you can learn from. If you go this direction, this is what's going to happen. If you cut down all the trees, I mean, again, you cut down all the trees, then the forces of nature will keep moving until something stops it or redirects it. You follow what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but let me just ask this question. So let's say you're an inquisitive kid, you're open-minded, you're kind of, whatever. So let's say they're you, but some people would say that's all well and good, and you're very you're out there because you believe in the Great Spirit and blah blah blah, but you're just not practical. You're just never going to really make it in the physical material world. How do you respond to that? How do you respond?
Exactly. By which standard?
Well,
standards are these the same thing we say about education? Are these the external standards that are set up? Are these the standards that would block you in, or are these standards rubrics and guides for a period of time up to a certain point, and then you continue to explore and move beyond those parameters for yourself, again, not to the detriment of anyone else. So for me, there's a negotiation between how one understands success. I'm extraordinarily successful in what I'm doing. I'm extraordinarily wealthy in what I'm doing.
Exactly.
I would not exchange it for anything.
Exactly.
I really
Exactly.
I would not exchange the experiences that I've had.
Right.
At all.
Right. It was funny because I was voted most likely to succeed in high school, right? So
Yeah.
I went to my 50th high school reunion a couple of years ago, actually, and people look at me and they go like, "God, you were meant to be so successful," and I say, "Heck yes, and I am,"
Exactly.
because we both live an incredibly rich life that has nothing to do with the numbers of how much. And
if that's your quote-unquote destiny, then so it is.
Absolutely.
I was in my class, I was most intellectual because I always had a book. I was always curious. I was always studying. Even my rest was study.
Really? Wow.
And I never got tired.
I
was never tired.
You're just a freak or a nerd or something like that.
And wonderful so, you know.
But
I remember about things I want to remember. So no, that's the other piece. When you go to bed at night,
right.
This is one thing I think about. Do you sleep well? When you're only with you, do you sleep well about what you've done?
That's really, and a lot of people don't.
And I snore.
Oh well, hey.
So I sleep very well.
But I think if you're really into the mysteries of life like you and I are, but then we have to pay the rent, right? We have to get along financially enough. So, but my feeling about it is you want to be totally integrated in your life. So if you're on a path, make your path your profession.
That is exactly what I was about to say. My father once said to me, "Your gifts will feed you. Your gifts will feed you." That's the key.
Yes.
And not only that, you will make the adjustments in your lifestyle living in order to accommodate the peace that it brings you in expressing your gifts. That also take care of you. You've got to, it's the same thing we said earlier. You've got to trust your path.
Trust.
Is that line of ones called integrity?
Integrity, right. In Voyager.
Integrity is truthful to yourself. If you know yourself out trying to be someone that you're not,
no,
then you've lost the world. You've lost your world.
Yeah, you might be successful. On the way to being successful, you could die of a heart attack or get into alcohol or whatever.
It happens every day.
Right. Actually, I have a card. So the Sage of Wands is a person like you and I, a sage coming from this deeper, higher, the meaning of life, the mystery that we come from. Yeah, right. But then in Voyager, like in every tarot, there are the worldly cards called Voyager, the Sage of Worlds, which is very successful in the material world, or successful enough. Enough.
They're successful at what they're doing.
That's why it's called the master, because the master is a person who does them, who they are.
That's right.
The
master is a magician in the sense of the Magi, who has the power to manifest.
But it's manifesting you. It's harvesting yourself.
That's right. And as you indicated, and I love in the description, each one of the persons that's in the card is an expression in physical form of what they're doing, and vice versa. Right.
So, but I don't think most people think that way, do they? No.
Well, okay, we're back to what we were saying about conditioning.
Right. Yeah.
The models that are presented for, and many advertisements don't portray that.
Yeah.
And so this is why you must take time away from looking at those images as the appropriate ones for you necessarily.
Right.
And discover what is appropriate for you and begin to surround yourself. That's the other piece. You've got to create your environment and surround yourself with those things that reinforce for you the insignia of success. the emblems of success.
Really?
Yeah, the expressions of the power that you bring into this physical world.
I know.
Tangible thing.
You're absolutely right. Your father was an amazingly wise human
And
being.
still is.
Yeah.
Still is.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, follow your bliss, and money will come. You know,
they will feed you.
They will feed you. I mean, financially, I don't have that much money, but I travel the world. I meet some. I mean, you know, come on, it's so rich.
As you know, wealth is not money.
It ain't
money.
Money.
Wealth is accessibility to resources.
Right.
Wealth is knowing how to use resources. Wealth is even knowing how to expand resources. That's wealth.
Well, it's so funny that I'm actually having to, because I work in China, the Chinese have asked me to make a fortune deck,
Yes.
a fortune maker. They call it a Voyager fortune maker. But yeah, okay, you want to have enough money, obviously, but they are really on that track, the material track. But I'm trying to steer them in a way. It's about being a wealthy human being.
Yes.
A wealthy human being.
Yes. Yes.
All of you, exactly whole. And if you're that, you will be also, by the way, wealthy enough. You'll be happy, and by the way, you'll be healthy, and by the way, you'll be holy. I mean, come on, but that's not an easy sale, actually.
No, because again, there's this inundation of other messages.
Right.
And you've got to turn the chatter off that is chatter and go within and really discover for yourself, what does wealth mean for you? What does health mean for you?
Well, that's
what. How do you share that?
And this is the road less traveled, because it's going to be only your road. And so,
as it should be.
And
you can share the insights from it, but it's your road. It's your journey.
And that takes courage. That takes heart. That takes trust. That takes belief. Don't you think? I mean, that's like, wow.
That takes experience as well.
Well, I remember, because I used to be I have a Ph.D. in political science, okay?
Yes.
And I was successful teaching, you know, but my inner voice said, this ain't it. And it's time for you to go on your own vision quest and go to India. And I like, oh my God, this is crazy. It doesn't make sense practically or financially, but it was such a strong impulse. The impulse, and I trusted it and followed it, and that changed my life, and that's why we're here today.
And see, another thing about that example you gave is that the trek in political science was part of the journey. It's not.
But totally.
It was off course. Right. It was a part of the journey. That's another thing, as I said earlier, about becoming a sage, is that nothing that you have done cannot become useful and a part of it.
That is lesson number one, I think, you know.
Yes. So you take full assessment. You don't go into denial, but you certainly you reflect on the things that could have been done better, done different.
No doubt.
But you don't bemoan it. You can't just stay there and kind of wallow in it. You've got to take it now and transmute it.
Right. So
that going forward,
right,
it becomes something worth sharing.
That's definitely one of the sagacious principles, that everything is opportunity. Everything's a growth opportunity, and the lotus grows out of the mud. Yes. You know.
Good food grows out of compost.
Compost is the best fertilizer, and we want to throw it away. And I screwed up, and I didn't happen. And hey, dude, use it.
Yeah.
Use it.
Okay, when you do the assessment at night, even if that is true, okay, it is true. It is true. You messed up. Now, what do you do? Right. Yeah. Since you know that, what do you do differently?
Right. Exactly. But it takes the willingness to change, to break old habits. You know, because we are creatures of habits.
Yeah.
And a lot of times,
change and to move forward. I mean, you think about another image comes to mind is just use this NASA. You know, space exploration. Right. You don't stop because a ship blows up, unfortunately, or because there's a mishap in your step. You still keep moving forward. You keep moving forward because there's a drive to move forward, and you balance that with the retrospection, not retrograde, the retrospection.
So that's the life force, is to keep evolving and moving forward.
But we are here having begun as an amoeba-like creature that dropped of stuff, for lack of a better way, sperm and ovary. That's how we began. But look at where we come from there. And where we transfer going forward. And I mean, all the way back to the Big Bang, it's the same principle.
Oh, yeah. I've had a physicist tell me, forget the bang, it was the big bounce.
Yes.
The big bounce. Like, whoa!
And here's the key. Whatever it was, it had to follow an impulse.
That is, and that's the life force to me. That's the source. And that's what it's all about, is being hip to that impulse. God. But, you know, it's a lot of people say, well, you're just so impulsive. Again, it's kind of a pejorative concept about it. And impulsive means, well, you just, you know, you're not, you know, you're impulsive and you're crazy that way, too spontaneous and all that. And in the tarot, that would be called the fool.
Right,
the
fool child.
The fool, exactly. It's like the wild child, the 2-year-old, who likes, oh, look at that orange thing. I look over there, and oh, it's a flame, by the way, you know, and I get burned. Yeah, but how do we learn but by trying and even getting burned?
And it's not either or.
Okay.
It's not either or. You're impulsive or you're not. It is finding that, then discovering, again, that balance. I think you brought up a really great point of either or. I think that has to be reframed. I mean, we are our language. We are our vocabulary. And if things are either or, that is the genesis of war. That is the genesis of conflict, because either I'm a good guy or a bad guy, good or evil, or me or you, or with me or not, you know. That's ridiculous. And it's always easy to say that the or is out there.
Yeah, right.
The or is out there. It's not in here.
So every time I hear that either or, I go to both and.
Yes,
both and that is spiritual, sagacious thinking. I mean, because limited thinking is this old Aristotelian logic, which goes back to the either or concept. And I hear that all the time, and the yes, but, the but. And then people sit on their butt because they're thinking about the rebuttal. You know?
And say again, the both and gives you the option of flexibility.
Absolutely, it gives you options.
And it allows you to make revisions along the way.
And to live in a multidimensional, multiverse world, which is the reality that we exist in. I mean, one of these other Sage cards, Will, is Sage of Crystals in Voyager, the Einstein card.
That's right.
Crystals are mental, but because in his hand, Einstein's hand, is this diamond. Diamonds are multifaceted.
That's right.
Multifaceted truths. It's all relative.
And they're valuable based on the perception about them.
Yeah, exactly. And
the name of that card is called the knower.
The knower. The knower.
Gnosis is experiential knowledge that comes from success and what one may call at the moment failure. But you come to know the multi-dimensionality of life, the multifacetedness of the things that you do, and that allows you to refine what you're doing. So the knowledge is based, the technology is based on experience and observation and correction.
But you called it gnosis. You mean the G?
Gnosis, that's G-N-O-S-S. It's a Greek word, and it means to know something not just here, you can know it multidimensional and through experience, through trial and error, verification.
Right. I just think that
spontaneity and practicality.
I think that's one of the principles of sagacity, of wisdom, is the multidimensionality of truth. I mean, here's Einstein, who brought up this whole idea was the theory of relativity. Everything is relative to where you are in life. What's going on? It's not just one size fits all here.
And everything is dialogical.
What does that mean?
Dialogical means that there's a give and take. There's a response. There's a confluence between the microcosm and the macrocosm.
Right.
But between the large macrocosmic world, there's a way to communicate and to assimilate so so that you can apply it to the microcosmic reality in which we live, those principles. And so, too, we can have an influence upon the macrocosmic through our knowledge and intuition, etc., in the microcosmic realm.
So that is definitely one of the great principles, don't you think, of wisdom living. It's the micro macro.
Recognition and application, yeah. It's recognition and application that life is negotiable.
Well, it's a multifaceted diamond.
We're not talking about, and when I said it, I don't mean you try to be clever or flip hard on life. You recognize a certain, I like to give a special example to my students intentionally. I ask, can a piece of metal fly? In its most mundane state, it will not fly. But when it is interacting with the mind of the human being and with certain laws and principles, it will become an airplane and it will fly.
Right, and you know how airplanes take off? They go against the wind.
Yes. Against it until they pick it up.
Exactly, because going, it'll lift you up. But so again, we have to embrace the opposite, embrace the polarity, embrace.
Wow. It even is part of the necessary inertia.
Inertia.
Necessary inertia.
Necessary inertia.
Yeah. That drives you forward. Resistance.
I get what you're talking about.
And
yes.
The resistance.
Right.
The initial resistance.
Without that, nothing exists.
You would still be an amoeba.
I just think that some of the greatest principles of how to live life now on this earth are really coming from the macro world, the law of physics, and the great universe and the principles that are out there.
Again, I think this is part of our metaphysical orientation. But yes, the universe and macro forces are talking back. And they're talking back to justice.
Well, one of the great principles is Newton's law of motion. The law of motion, I think it's his third law, whatever, is for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes.
And I mean, like as much as we go forward, we go back. And like people are looking at, let's say, the political climate these days. We don't want to get political, but a lot of people are afraid and they're screwed up and, oh my God, what's happening, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I say, that's all true, but remember, this law of action and reaction.
And it's an opportunity for you to do what you're going to do.
This is a tremendous opportunity time.
In fact, that's part of the reason we want to have these sagacious conversations. So that we can share and speak not just about personal development, but about social and corporate development.
Absolutely.
Etc.
Because, when things,
today's world.
like when things crack up and break apart, all life comes in cracks. I mean,
Yeah, what you do not want to do is just simply sit back and do nothing.
Oh, you're a victim at that point. You have no hope. This is the time to be the most proactive, opportunistic, growthful time because the opportunities are there. They abound now.
Get in the inertia.
Get going.
Get in it.
Get in it. Embrace it. Woo, I like this, Will.
Move forward.
Okay, so let's kind of round this up here. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I'm thinking, one of the questions I always ask in every class I teach is at the end of the class, I say, so what's your takeaway? What did you learn? What did you learn today? And I usually have people talk to their person they're sitting next to or something like that. And I'm trying to say, so what did I learn today from our conversation? Now, what did you get from our conversation? I think what I get now that we've talked about this, and these are unrehearsed, conversations.
Totally
impulsive. Totally intuitive. We never know where we're going to go. We just have a general theme and we roll. And I just think that's the most exciting part of what we're talking about here, is the unpredictability, the spontaneity, the adventurousness, the youthfulness, the openness. That's there without having to be, well, I'm an authority and I know about this and I'm a master of whatever.
Well, again, it's both men, because in the midst of the spontaneity is a purpose, and the purpose begins to express itself as we continue to talk. What we're really about in this particular moment is, A, discovering and then sharing what it means to be sagacious, what it means to be a sage, and then B, expressing how this can be valuable for others beside ourselves, or in addition to ourselves, or in collaboration.
Oh, well, okay, so let's just touch on that for a second here, about the need for collaboration, the need for sharing, the need for communicating with others. Because, I mean, you could be a total introvert, right? And you can read every book in the history of the world, and you can be wise within your life, but is that what we're talking about? I mean, it's
no, to be fully human really is to be in collaboration. Again, in Genesis, when the human being in that mythology, when the human being is brought forth, it's brought forth as male and female. It's brought forth as community. It's brought forth as collaboration.
Absolutely.
It's brought forth as complementarity.
Right.
And it's in that collaboration, complementarity, that they are given a charge, quote unquote, to bring that stewardship with the environment.
Right. I think, and it's too bad in America, a quarter of Americans have nobody to talk to, so that's a pretty dysfunctional, unsustainable society to begin with. But a lot of times people have a hard time talking freely because they're so ideologically stuck. You know, like I have a fixed belief, and we can't even talk about whatever because I have this belief, and don't tread on my belief. Because then,
as you said, there's a condition is the either-or template that we've been given. So that means we have to break out of the either-or template.
Right.
And be willing to move, break out of the either-or and be willing to move into the both, and with a sense of intentionality for the betterment of the whole.
Well, because the reason why the human species has survived and evolved, even way back when there were huge animals that could knock us over pretty easily and all the rest, was we learned how to cooperate. We learned how to collaborate. We learned how to commune and live in community.
And how to adapt.
And adapt, absolutely, which is to be change able.
Adapting is discovering how to keep moving forward, again, as we said before, in the midst of initial inertia and resistance.
But do that as an individual, but also in community, and that's why the sage is a person who is here to share the wisdom.
So in the community, raises it exponentially. It's not just one. It's raised exponentially to another power.
Right. And we call that synergy. Synergy is where the whole is greater than sum of the parts.
That's right.
But it takes absolutely in Voyager it is. Oh, you really know the cards, don't you? The synergy card, which comes from Sun Ergo, Sun Urgi. That's there, which keeps going and going and going. But it takes that willingness to communicate, to be open, to empathize, to listen, and explore. Woo! I like it.
Absolutely.
I love this conversation, Will. You're a peach. Well, a Georgia peach.
We both are, man. I'm in Georgia.
No. I'm a banana, and you're a peach.
Well, what's the favorite fruit in California? You can be that. The peach is the one in Georgia.
Well, is an avocado a peach? Is an avocado a fruit or a vegetable?
No, it's a favorite food.
Okay, my man, this has been brilliant talking to you. I love you, and we'll be back, everybody, to talk more sage talk. See you later. Check it out. All right, man. Adventure on.
You too.